looking for it.
Okay.
And we are about to be live. I should just let you know that
Okay.
that we are now live. Welcome. You are at week 2 of the memoir writing class at the Mildred Whipple Library. I'll be talking to our students who are in person, and we have staff. This is all new to us, so please be patient. We appreciate your patience. We have a staff member who will be answering your questions if you type them in while we're live. You can also send us questions at info@ndld.org, which is North Douglas Library District. Info@ndld.org. For questions about the memoir writing program or the books that you are looking forward to reading this season. We actually, as we discussed last week, not in the recorded version, but we did discuss in person last week that memoir 2 weeks ago. We are on week 2 of our class, but we missed a week. So, Murphy's Law. And we're back with week 2, which is actually happening during the 3rd week since we started. Anyway, here we are, and what we discussed a couple weeks ago was a sense of place in our writing. And we have students here who I believe I've heard from some of them. They did quite a bit of writing around the sense of place. We'll share those off camera. If you want to email yours in, or if you want to attend in person, let us know, and you can share in person next week. We'll share those after we're done recording. Sense of place is important. Thing we want to talk about today, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but what I have prepared to talk about today is voice. And have you ever heard of a writer's voice? I see some heads shaking, and it's kind of a strange phrase that editors and readers use to describe the way that that writers have a very distinctive, every single writer has a very distinctive way of putting words together, and it would sound like them. And when we're writing in our authentic voice, people can really tell that it was us, right? If you're writing your own memoir, that's very important. If you're writing the memoir of someone else, then you want to know enough about their vocabulary choices and their phrasing. So today we're going to talk about voice, how to develop yours if you don't already have it. I bet you do. If you've written letters, if you have, told stories to your family members and friends, you do have a voice. It's just kind of developing how to turn it into what you write down on paper or type into the computer. I have some examples of voice because that always helps me. If I think about, some people speak very formally. Have you ever noticed that? And some people don't even make a complete sentence. And when you hear them, if you translated that onto paper, it would be really difficult to tell what they meant. But regardless, the way that we write it down should sound like us. And I'm going to read from one of my very favorite writers, for the benefit of everyone at home, Renee Brown. And this is not technically memoir. It does have most everything Renee Brown writes has many elements of memoir. She writes about her own struggles with usually vulnerability, or authenticity, or all those sort of buzzwords that are important to us today when we're talking about relationships and mental health and work styles. She writes about these things, but she tells her personal story to illustrate it. That's a really important thing to do. But I'm going to read just a little bit from Renee Brown, who is a PhD, incredibly intelligent woman. She writes in a way that is very accessible. Her voice makes it feel like you are friends, right? Okay, so she's going to say, then I told her that sometimes when I teach, I turn the lights out and play for the class an old cassette tape I have of her reciting her poem, Our Grandmothers. I told her how I would sometimes just replay that line, I shall not be moved. Anybody have a guess of who she's talking to? Maya Angelou. So she's telling Maya Angelou that she plays a tape of Maya reciting, and Maya Angelou was a very great poet. She held my hands even tighter, looked right into my eyes, and with a slow and deep voice sang, like a tree, I'm not singing, like a tree planted by the river, I shall not be moved. Then she squeezed my hands hard and said, do not be moved, Renee. It was as if she bundled up all the courage I'll ever need in my entire life and handed it to me. Rarely do you have the gift of knowing you're inside a moment that will be part of what defines you. But I knew. What do you do when you've spent the majority of your life moving to try to fit in, and all of a sudden Maya Angelou is singing to you and telling you not to be moved? You learn how to plant your damn feet is what you do. Okay, so the reason I select that is because PhD, incredibly intelligent woman who knows a lot more than I will ever know about mental health and relationship building and all the great things she writes about, but she cusses in her book. She said a bad word, right? Do we think of that as a, quote, professional way to write?
Damn's not a cuss word. It's in the Bible.
Okay, so one of our students in person said that's not an actual cuss. But I think my point is, that's a good point. My point is that we hear Renee Brown's voice because she's authentically herself when she's writing, even when she's writing about something maybe heavy or important. That might not be your voice. You might not say damn in your everyday language. But if you do, then it should be in your memoir writing. I have a lot of examples too. Oh, who likes Reese Witherspoon?
Yeah.
She's very popular. And this is a great example of a modern kind of a memoir in which not only is her voice, which is charming, Southern, and sort of flirty, right? That's how I would think of Reese Witherspoon. But she does a lot of the things we talked about 2 weeks ago. There's art. She includes art in here. She includes recipes. Did you ever think of writing a memoir that was based around your recipes or your grandma's or aunt's recipes? So this is a memoir that she wrote that's full of her own personal collection. And so her voice comes through because nobody else could put all those things together in that same way. Mm-hmm. Anybody have anything they'd like to add or discuss about voice before I do have some things to read and some exercises to do.
I did wonder when you said voice, if you meant they were trying to get a message through to people. Because their voice could be repeated from book to book or writing to writing, because they have this drive to say, teach and, teach people things that they think are important that the other people may not be on line with. I just wondered if that has anything to do with voice.
I'm going to repeat that just in case it couldn't be heard. Okay. And you tell me if I got it right. So Cynthia was wondering if we were using voice in the sense of I have something to teach you or to say, and we want it to travel from the separate books or pieces that I write, like as a message. Like are you thinking maybe like when we say use your voice for good or something?
Yeah, anything like that.
Yeah, that's a perfectly valid way to think about the word. And I love that. I had not intended that to be part of this discussion, but it's wonderful to add that.
Well, I think it happens all the time. If you do any reading, you see that the people are not only writing the story they're telling, but they tell you what's important to them and hoping that you'll see their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I
don't
think
know if
that's
that's
really
true
true.
or not.
And that's a really good point, because your memoir is by definition your point of view.
Mhm.
No one else has lived that experience.
I went more nature.
Mhm.
The different voices that you hear. Little birds cheeping, talking to you, yelling at you, squirrels squabbling,
Mhm.
the rustling of the leaves, stone, silence, frogs, the babbling brook,
Hmm.
the moaning of trees when the wind is really hard. You can hear them creak.
That's lovely to think about for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good metaphor in there, because in case you couldn't hear at home, Joe was saying that nature has many voices, and I think that's true. When you write your story, if you're going to have a prompt today that you work from, and we have some prompts to take home too, because I know you're all writing up a storm at home. We're going to talk about, excuse me, I have to take a little drink of my tea. We're going to talk about how to make sure that your writing voice does not sound like your 9th grade teacher. That's what I really hope that you can take away from today, that you don't self-edit to make your writing voice into something that's not truly you. And if you're telling a personal story, which is what memoir is, you want it to have the flavor of you. So let's move into these exercises that we have. Excuse me. Super dry throat. Okay. So to find your writing voice, there are a lot of good exercises that you can find online. And I have 3 here that I'm going to talk about, and you can choose one of them to work on when we break for writing time today. Remembering that your goals are your own. I can't make your goals. But my goals, when I'm writing something personal like memoir, is that people would say, I bet Miriam wrote that. Okay, so here are some ways, if you aren't quite sure what voice you want to come across. First of all, exercise number 1, you make a list of your favorite authors, and they do not have to be people who wrote memoir or biography. Make a list of the people you like to read the most, maybe 3 or maybe 5. Shouldn't be too long of a list. And you would then reflect after each author on what about their writing makes you like it so much. This might get you to answer some questions about voice. If I made my list of some of my favorite authors, I would, I've already mentioned Madeleine L'Engle, I think in our first class, and she, across the board, is probably one of my favorite authors. And she explores ideas. So I think that would be one of the things I'd write down about what I like about her works, is that she takes you along on a journey instead of just, she might state a thesis at the beginning. She might say where you're going, but mostly when I read what she writes, I feel like I'm discovering it as she does. So is that a question of voice? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. I have another long time favorite author. Like I'll read everything she ever wrote, and now you'll know too much about me. Rosamund Pilcher, and she wrote set in Cornwall or Greece, or always in these really lovely remote locations. And her descriptions of place are so beautiful. But more than that, her way of building relationships between her characters. I love that about her writing. And so then I'm starting to get this feeling from what I like about Madeleine L'Engle and what I like about Rosamund Pilcher, and there are many, many others, of course, because I work in a library. I start to see, are there any common denominators there? Not because we want to copy or emulate anyone else's voice, but just like we would say, I went to, tour a beautiful home, and then, oh, what was it about that was so attractive to me? And how could I make that part of my everyday life? Well, they had art on the walls, and they had lighting in every corner, whatever those things were. So we're going to analyze. That's our exercise number 1 that we could think about, is writing down a list of your favorite writers and a couple of things of things that make them your favorites. Exercise number 2. And I don't mean to be going too fast. We will have time for writing today and for sharing as well. This one I really like. Did anybody ever, were you in business during the time of, I don't know if they do this anymore, the elevator pitch, where you had to work on how to get your idea across, your business idea across in 30 seconds or less, like between floors of the elevator or something. So this one is called a 3-word tagline for your voice. If you think about your voice, what 3 words would you use to describe your writing voice, or the writing voice you wish you had? And when I was thinking about that, I thought, oh, mine might be wordy. I don't know if that's what I wish for, but wordy, earnest, romantic. Those would maybe be 3 words that I would think, maybe not that I'm aspiring to, but that I default to. Some people's writing voice is direct and, confrontational. I don't know, whatever. You're going to have your own words, but that is exercise number 2, your 3-word tagline. And then my favorite exercise number 3, and the one that I'll probably work on if I do writing time today, is free writing. And this, from my perspective, which is again super personal, free writing is the best way to find your voice, because you just can't help but write in your own voice when you don't have an assignment. It can be daunting. Okay, we practiced this a little bit at the end of week 1, when we said we're not going to pick up our pen, or if you're on your computer, not going to take your hands off the keyboard, and you're not going to edit yourself as you go. You can't be, when you're free writing, it's really important to not judge your own last sentence or word in any way. It's like brainstorming with a group. There are no bad ideas. In free writing, there are no bad words. There are no wrong sentence structures. And don't edit as you go. Don't delete or strike through any words. And if you're stuck with what to write about, write exactly that. Write every single word that flows through your mind. I'm stuck. The last time I felt this stuck, I ended up going to the kitchen for coffee. Coffee makes everything better. The first time I had coffee, it was in my cousin Andrea's kitchen, and I drank it black because she was infinitely cool. That's what happened if I thought about being stuck, right? So then you'll get yourself unstuck, because you just aren't allowed. The only thing you're not allowed to do in free writing is stop writing. And I'm excited to hear all of your writing voices. I'm going to pause the video or end the stream. Please go to the email that was sent to you from info@ndld.org, and you will find those prompts, some other prompts just for fun, and remember to send in your samples if you want to. I don't really know how to end it. Oh, it's not a touch screen.
Unplug it.
Unplug it. Okay.